I destroyed my sister's life 3 years ago. I seduced her fiancé 2 weeks before their wedding, and I don't regret it. Ryan chose me. He loved me more. That's just how life works, right? But last night, at the Crystal Charity Gala in Manhattan, I saw her again. My perfect, humble, good girl sister Claire walked in wearing a diamond necklace worth more than my house. On her arm, a man I recognized from Forbes magazine, Alexander Rothschild. Net worth $8.3 billion. And the way he looked at her, like she was the only woman in the room, made my blood run cold. Because suddenly, I realized something terrifying. I didn't win. I never won. I just picked up her leftovers. 3 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. My older sister Claire was engaged to Ryan Mitchell, handsome, charming, successful marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company. They'd been together since college. 6 years of the perfect couple everyone envied. I was the younger sister. The fun one. The pretty one. The one who didn't take life so seriously. Claire was always the responsible one. The one who got straight A's while I barely graduated. The one who volunteered at animal shelters while I partied. The one everyone said would go far in life. But you know what? I had something she didn't. I knew how to make men want me. It started innocently enough. Ryan would come over to our parents' house in Westchester for family dinners. Claire would be in the kitchen helping Mom, being the perfect daughter. And I'd be in the living room with Ryan, making him laugh, touching his arm, letting my dress ride up just a little when I sat down. I told myself I was just being friendly. But I knew what I was doing. The real turning point came at Claire's bridal shower. She was opening gifts, glowing with happiness, surrounded by her bridesmaids and friends. Everyone was cooing over china patterns and kitchen appliances. I was bored out of my mind. Ryan had stayed behind at the house with my dad, supposedly watching football. I faked a headache and left early. When I got home, I found Ryan alone in our backyard, sitting by the pool with a beer. Dad had fallen asleep in front of the TV. "Shower over already?" he asked. "Yeah." I couldn't take another second of tea sandwich talk. I sat down next to him, close enough that our thighs touched. "You must be going crazy with all this wedding planning stuff." He laughed, but there was something in his eyes. "It's a lot. Claire's always been intense about planning everything perfectly," I said, taking a sip of his beer. Our fingers touched on the bottle. "Must be exhausting. Sometimes I feel like..." He stopped himself. "Like what?" "Like I'm marrying the idea of the perfect life instead of... I don't know." "Forget it." But I didn't forget it. I filed it away. Over the next 2 weeks, I made sure to be around whenever Ryan was. I'd show up at their apartment just passing by. I'd text him funny memes. I'd ask his advice about guy problems I was having. And then, 12 days before the wedding, Claire had to fly to Chicago for a work emergency. She'd be gone for 3 days. I invited Ryan to a party in Manhattan. "Come on," I texted him. "You're about to be a married man. One last night of freedom. Claire won't mind." He hesitated. Then, "Okay." One drink. One drink turned into 4. 4 turned into dancing at a club in the meatpacking district. Dancing turned into kissing in a dark corner. And kissing turned into waking up in his apartment the next morning, tangled in his sheets, both of us knowing we'd just blown up everything. If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure you're subscribed because what happens next gets absolutely insane. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. "Oh my God. Oh my God. What did we do?" I felt a sick thrill in my stomach. Not guilt, excitement. I'd won something Claire had. "Finally, it just happened," I said softly, touching his back. "These things happen when 2 people have a real connection. I'm getting married in less than 2 weeks." "To the wrong person," I said. And I believed it. I had to believe it. "Ryan, be honest. When you're with Claire, do you feel what you felt last night with me?" He didn't answer. But he didn't have to. We had sex again that morning, and the next night, and the night after that. By the time Claire came back from Chicago, Ryan and I had decided we were in love. Real love. Not the boring, practical love he had with Claire. The passionate, can't keep our hands off each other kind. He had to tell her. We agreed on that. It would hurt, but it was better than living a lie. 6 days before the wedding, Ryan asked Claire to meet him at a coffee shop in White Plains, neutral territory. I waited at his apartment, my stomach in knots, my phone clutched in my hand. When he came back 2 hours later, his eyes were red. I told her everything. I thought it would be messy. I didn't realize it would be nuclear. Claire didn't cry when Ryan told her. According to him, she just sat there, completely still, as he explained that he'd fallen in love with me, that he couldn't marry her, that he was sorry but this was real. Then she asked one question. How long? 2 weeks, Ryan admitted. 2 weeks. Claire repeated it like she was testing the words. You threw away 6 years for 2 weeks. Then she stood up, walked out of the coffee shop, and didn't look back. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Claire called off the wedding. The venues, the caterers, the florist, all cancelled. My parents lost thousands in deposits. The guests who'd already booked flights and hotels were notified. My mother called me screaming, actually screaming, which she'd never done in my entire life. How could you do this to your sister? Your own sister? Mom, I didn't plan this. You seduced him. 2 weeks before her wedding. He chose me. If he really loved Claire, I couldn't have. Get out of my house. I was living at home at the time, between jobs, between apartments. My mother meant it. She packed my bags herself and left them on the front porch. My father wouldn't even look at me. I moved in with Ryan. It was supposed to be romantic, us against the world. But reality set in fast. His friends stopped calling. His family was furious. His mother called me that home-wrecking slut to my face at a family dinner Ryan insisted would smooth things over. It didn't. Claire disappeared. She quit her job at the consulting firm in Stamford, broke her lease, and vanished. My parents wouldn't tell me where she went. They'd chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. I told myself I didn't care. I had Ryan. That's all that mattered. But here's what no one tells you about relationships that start with betrayal. They're built on sand. Ryan and I fought constantly. He felt guilty. I felt defensive. He'd compare me to Claire, her cooking, her organization, her career ambition. I'd remind him that he chose me, that I was more exciting, more passionate. Our sex life, which had been explosive in the beginning, became mechanical, then sporadic, then almost non-existent. 2 years in, we were roommates who occasionally slept together, but I refused to admit I'd made a mistake. I couldn't. Not after what I'd sacrificed. Not after burning every bridge. So when Ryan proposed, a half-hearted proposal at a mediocre Italian restaurant, I said yes immediately. We got married at City Hall with 2 random witnesses. No family. No friends. Just us and a judge who looked bored. My wedding dress was from Zara. My reception was pizza in our small apartment in Hoboken. I posted one photo on Instagram with the caption, Mrs. Mitchell, red heart emoji, finally got my happily ever after. Claire didn't like it. She'd blocked me on everything years ago. Sometimes, late at night, I'd check her social media. But her accounts were gone. It was like she'd erased herself from existence. I told myself she was probably miserable somewhere, alone, still heartbroken over Ryan. It made me feel better. Stay with me because this is where everything I thought I knew gets completely shattered. Last night changed everything. Ryan's company somehow scored tickets to the Crystal Charity Gala, a black tie event at the Plaza Hotel that raises money for children's hospitals. Tickets are $2,500 per person. We couldn't really afford it, but Ryan's boss offered them as a bonus, and Ryan was desperate to network. I was excited. Finally, a chance to dress up, feel glamorous, be around wealthy, important people. I bought a dress I couldn't afford from Bloomingdale's, got my hair and makeup done professionally. I looked good, really good. Ryan looked uncomfortable in his rented tux, but I ignored it. This was my night. The Plaza Ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, champagne towers. Everyone dripping in designer clothes and jewelry. I felt like I'd finally made it. Like I belonged in this world. Ryan and I got drinks and started mingling. Well, I mingled. Ryan stood awkwardly by the bar, checking his phone. I was talking to a woman who owned a PR firm when I heard it. A ripple through the crowd. People turning, whispering, craning their necks toward the entrance. Oh my God, is that Alexander Rothschild? My stomach dropped before I even knew why. I turned toward the grand entrance at the top of the stairs. And there she was, Claire, my sister. But not the Claire I remembered. Not the girl in sensible work clothes and minimal makeup who cried at animal shelter commercials. This Claire was radiant. She wore an emerald green gown that probably cost more than my car, custom fitted to her body perfectly. Her hair was styled in elegant waves. Diamond earrings caught the light. And around her neck, a necklace with a single enormous emerald surrounded by diamonds that had to be worth 6 figures. But it wasn't the clothes or the jewelry that made me freeze. It was the way she carried herself, confident, glowing, happy. And the man beside her, tall, maybe 6 feet 3 inches, with silver-streaked dark hair and a jawline that could cut glass. He wore his tuxedo like he was born in it. His hand rested possessively on the small of Claire's back as they descended the stairs. People literally parted for them. "That's Alexander Rothschild," someone whispered nearby. "The Alexander Rothschild. Real estate empire, tech investments. One of the richest men in New York." "Who's the woman?" "His wife, I think. They got married last year. Very private wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow. Wife. Claire was married to a billionaire. I watched, frozen, as they moved through the crowd. People approached them, eager to talk, to be noticed. Claire smiled graciously, laughed at something Alexander whispered in her ear, introduced herself to a senator's wife. She belonged here, truly belonged, not faking it like I was. And then, like some horrible slow-motion nightmare, her eyes swept across the room, and landed directly on me. For a moment, the entire ballroom seemed to fade away. It was just me and Claire, staring at each other across a sea of wealthy strangers. Her face didn't change. No shock, no anger, no hurt. Just a flicker of recognition, then nothing. Like I was a stranger she vaguely remembered from somewhere. Then she looked away and continued her conversation with a woman wearing a Bulgari necklace. I couldn't breathe. My champagne glass was shaking in my hand. "Who are you staring at?" Ryan appeared beside me, following my gaze. And then he saw her too. The color drained from his face. Is that Claire?" I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up. "That's Claire," Ryan repeated, his voice strange. "What the hell? What is she doing here? And who is that guy?" "Alexander Rothschild," I managed. She married him." Ryan's mouth fell open. He stared at Claire and Alexander like he'd seen a ghost. A ghost that was now worth billions. "She married Alexander Rothschild," Ryan said slowly. "The Alexander Rothschild." I wanted to leave. I wanted to run out of the ballroom and never come back. But my legs wouldn't move. Claire and Alexander were making their way through the crowd, greeting people, shaking hands. They were moving in our general direction. "We should go," I said quickly. "Ryan, let's go." Ryan's voice was firm. "I want to talk to her. I need to." "Need to what? Congratulate her on marrying a billionaire?" "She looks happy," Ryan said quietly. And there was something in his voice, regret? Longing? That made me want to scream. Before I could drag him away, it was too late. Claire and Alexander were right in front of us. Up close, Claire was even more stunning. Her skin glowed. Her eyes were bright. She looked healthy, successful, content in a way I'd never seen before. "Melissa." Claire's voice was calm, pleasant even. Like we were old acquaintances running into each other at a grocery store. "Claire? Hi, I didn't know you'd be here. It's a charity event. Alexander sits on the board." She gestured to the man beside her. "Alexander, this is my younger sister, Melissa." And her eyes moved to Ryan. "Ryan." Alexander extended his hand to me first. His handshake was firm, confident. "Pleasure to meet you." Claire's told me about her family. What had she told him? Did he know what I'd done? Alexander shook Ryan's hand next. "Good to meet you." Ryan looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "You too." "Claire, you look..." "Wow." Claire smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you. You both look well." The awkwardness was suffocating. People were watching us, sensing drama. "So," I said, my voice too bright, too fake. "Married. Congratulations." "That's so. When did you?" "Last June," Claire said smoothly. "Small ceremony in the Hamptons. Just close friends and family." We left the gala an hour later. Ryan barely spoke the entire Uber ride back to Hoboken. I tried to fill the silence. "Can you believe that? Claire, married to a billionaire. What are the odds?" "Nothing. I mean, good for her, I guess. Though you have to wonder if she actually loves him or if it's just about the money." "Stop." Ryan's voice was sharp. "Just stop." I went quiet. When we got home to our cramped 2-bedroom apartment with its peeling paint and cheap furniture, the contrast was almost unbearable. Ryan poured himself a bourbon, straight, no ice, and stood by the window, staring out at the lights of Manhattan across the river. "She looked happy," he finally said. "So, really happy. Like, I've never seen her look like that." You saw her for 2 minutes, Ryan. She never looked at me the way she looked at him. Ryan turned to face me. Did you see it? The way he touched her? The way she leaned into him? That's what? I demanded. That's what I thought we'd have. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Are you serious right now? My voice was rising. You're comparing our marriage to? Yes. Ryan slammed his glass down. Yes, I'm comparing. Because seeing her tonight made me realize something I've been avoiding for 3 years. What? I made a mistake. He looked at me, and his eyes were cold. The biggest mistake of my life. The ground disappeared beneath my feet. What? Claire was the one. She was always the one. And I threw her away for. He gestured vaguely at me. For this? For this? I repeated. For me? I'm your wife. A wife I married because I was too proud to admit I'd screwed up, Ryan shouted. Because I'd already lost everything. My friends, my family's respect, Claire, and I couldn't lose you too because then it would all be for nothing. Tears burned my eyes. You told me you loved me. You said you chose me. I was infatuated with you. Ryan ran his hands through his hair. You were exciting and new and you made me feel alive. But that's not love, Melissa. That's not building a life with someone. We built a life. No, we didn't. We've been surviving. Barely. Do you know how much credit card debt we have? How far behind we are on rent? I work 60 hours a week and we can barely afford this shithole apartment in Hoboken. That's not my fault. You haven't worked in 8 months. I've been applying. To what? Instagram influencer positions? You're 31 years old, Melissa. You have no career, no savings, no plan. And I'm drowning trying to keep us afloat while you post selfies and buy dresses we can't afford. Each word was a knife. You're really going to blame me for everything? I said. You're the one who cheated on Claire. You're the one who proposed to me. I didn't force you to do any of this. You're right, Ryan said quietly. You didn't force me. I made my own choices. Bad choices. And now I have to live with them. He walked to the bedroom and pulled out a duffel bag. What are you doing? I'm staying at Mark's place tonight. Mark was one of the few friends from college who still talked to Ryan, barely. I need space to think. Think about what? Ryan looked at me like I was a stranger. About whether I can spend the rest of my life like this. Wondering what could have been if I hadn't been such an idiot. He packed a bag, took his keys, and left. I stood in our empty apartment, the sound of the door closing echoing in my ears. For the first time since this whole thing started 3 years ago, I was completely alone. He texted once. Still need time. Don't call me. I called anyway. It went straight to voicemail. I started obsessively Googling Alexander Rothschild and Claire. The internet was full of information. Alexander was 42. Never been married before Claire. He'd built his fortune in real estate development, then diversified into tech startups and venture capital. Net worth estimated between $8 to $12 billion depending on the source. And Claire? There were photos of her at charity events, gallery openings, benefits, always elegant, always poised. In every photo, Alexander looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I found an interview Alexander had done with Forbes 6 months ago. The interviewer asked about his recent marriage. I'd given up on finding someone real, Alexander said. Everyone I dated in New York was either after my money or treating me like a business transaction. Then I met Claire at a literacy fundraiser. She had no idea who I was. Genuinely no idea. We talked for 2 hours about books, travel, her work with underprivileged kids. When I told her what I did, she was polite but not impressed. I fell in love with her that night. The interviewer asked what made Claire special. Her authenticity, her kindness, the way she treats my driver and my housekeeper with the same respect she shows to CEOs. She's brilliant, speaks 3 languages, has her master's degree in international development. But more than that, she's good. Genuinely good. I'm the luckiest man alive. I read that interview 5 times, feeling sicker each time. Claire had a master's degree? When had she gotten that? I kept digging. Found her LinkedIn profile. She was now director of global initiatives at a major international charity. Before that, she'd spent 2 years doing humanitarian work in East Africa. While I'd been, living with Ryan, not working, posting thirst traps on Instagram? My phone rang. My mother. I answered immediately. Mom. Did you see her? Mom's voice was tight. At the gala? Yes. Your father and I had lunch with Claire and Alexander last week. They drove up to Westchester. Alexander wanted to meet us properly. He's wonderful, Melissa. Respectful, intelligent, clearly adores your sister. They're talking about starting a foundation together. That's great. Claire forgave us, for losing touch after the wedding incident. She understood that we were hurt and needed time. She's even invited us to their home in the Hamptons for Thanksgiving. Invited you. The words tasted bitter, yes. You're not welcome, Melissa. She was very clear about that. And honestly, neither your father nor I blame her, Mom. I need to go. I'm meeting Claire for dinner in the city. She's taking me to that restaurant. What's it called? Le Bernardin. I've always wanted to go. She hung up. I sat on my couch in my crappy apartment, alone, and finally let myself feel it. The crushing weight of what I'd done. I hadn't won. I'd never won. I'd traded everything. My family, my sister, my self-respect, for a man who resented me. Meanwhile, Claire had lost Ryan and somehow found everything else. A career. Purpose. A man who worshipped her. Wealth, respect. Happiness. Real happiness. Not the fake Instagram filter version I'd been pretending to have. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. I want a divorce. I showed up at Mark's apartment in Queens at midnight, pounding on the door until Ryan answered. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Ryan tried to close the door. I shoved it open. You don't get to text me, I want a divorce and then hide. We're married. A marriage that was a mistake from day one, Ryan shouted back. I've been miserable for 3 years, Melissa. 3 years of pretending that what we have is real. It is real. We love each other. No, we don't, Ryan laughed bitterly. We never did. It was lust and rebellion and stupidity. And seeing Claire again just made me realize how badly I've cupped up my entire life. You're in love with her still, I said. That's what this is about. Of course I am. Ryan's voice broke. I never stopped. But it doesn't matter because she's moved on to someone who actually deserves her. Someone who didn't betray her 2 weeks before their wedding. So what? You want her back? You think you have a chance? No. Ryan cut me off. I know I don't have a chance. That ship sailed 3 years ago when I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. But I'm not spending the rest of my life with the person who helped me do it. The cruelty of that statement stole my breath. I helped you? My voice was shaking. You pursued me. You made the choice. And you encouraged it every step of the way. Ryan's eyes were hard. Don't act innocent. You wanted to take something that was Claire's. You always resented her, the perfect older sister who everyone loved. This was your revenge. That's not true. Isn't it? Ryan stepped closer. Be honest, Melissa. For once in your life, be honest. Did you actually love me? Or did you just love winning? I opened my mouth to deny it. But the words died in my throat. Because he was right. I'd wanted to prove I could take something that was Claire's. That I could win. That I was better, prettier, more desirable. But winning meant nothing if the prize was this. Get a lawyer, Ryan said. I'll pay for the divorce. It's the least I can do. But I want this done as fast as possible, Brian. Goodbye, Melissa. He closed the door. I stood in the hallway of a building in Queens, listening to my marriage end through a closed door. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you for staying. The ending is going to hit different than anything you've heard before. 6 weeks later, I was sitting in a lawyer's office in Midtown, signing divorce papers. Ryan had been generous, more generous than he needed to be. He was taking all the debt. I could keep what little savings we had. He'd even offered to pay my rent for 3 months while I figured things out. Guilt, probably. Or maybe just wanting to be done with me. The divorce would be final in 60 days. I signed my name and felt nothing. No sadness, no relief, just numbness. As I was leaving the building, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Melissa. It's Claire. I froze on the sidewalk. People flowing around me like water around a stone. Claire. Hi. How did you get my number? Mom gave it to me. Do you have time to meet for coffee? There's something I want to say to you. My first instinct was to say no. To run. But curiosity, and maybe some sick desire for closure, made me agree. We met at a Starbucks in Union Square. Neutral territory. Claire was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth. She wore jeans and a simple cashmere sweater, expensive, but understated. No jewelry except her wedding ring, which was a platinum band with a massive emerald-cut diamond that probably cost more than Ryan's annual salary. She looked up when I approached. "Thank you for coming." I sat down across from her, my coffee shaking in my hands. "I heard about the divorce," Claire said simply. I wanted to reach out. To gloat? No. Claire looked genuinely surprised. "Why would I gloat? I'm not happy you're in pain, Melissa. You're still my sister." Those words, "you're still my sister," broke something inside me. "I'm sorry," I blurted out. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I was horrible to you. I ruined your wedding. I stole your fiancé. I destroyed our family. And I did it because I was jealous and petty and I wanted to hurt you." Claire listened quietly. "You were always better than me at everything," I continued, the words pouring out. "Smarter, kinder, more successful. Everyone loved you. And I hated it. So when I had the chance to take something from you, I did. And I've spent 3 years pretending I didn't regret it. But seeing you at that gala, married to Alexander, so happy, I realized I didn't win anything. I just burned my whole life down for nothing." I was crying now. Ugly crying in a Starbucks in Union Square. Claire reached across the table and took my hand. "I forgave you a long time ago," she said softly. I looked up, shocked. "What?" "I forgave you about 6 months after it happened. I was angry at first. So angry I couldn't see straight. But then I started therapy. And my therapist helped me realize something important." "What?" "Ryan wasn't the right person for me." Claire smiled slightly. "I loved him, but it was a comfortable love. Safe, predictable. We'd been together since we were kids. I think part of me knew we weren't right, but I was too afraid to admit it. So I kept planning the wedding, going through the motions. But he cheated on you. And that freed me," Claire said. "It hurt like hell, but it forced me to actually examine my life. What I wanted. Who I wanted to be. I quit my boring job. I moved to Kenya and worked at a school for girls who'd been rescued from trafficking. I learned Swahili. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I figured out who Claire was outside of being the perfect daughter or the perfect girlfriend." She squeezed my hand. "And then I met Alexander at a charity event. And for the first time in my life, I felt what real love is supposed to feel like. Not obligation or comfort, passion and partnership and genuine respect." "So you're saying, you're grateful I ruined your wedding?" Claire laughed. "I wouldn't go that far. But I'm grateful for where I ended up. And I'm grateful I didn't marry someone who could be seduced away from me 2 weeks before the wedding. Better to know then than 10 years and 2 kids later." I wiped my eyes. "I've ruined my entire life." "No, you haven't." Claire's voice was firm. "You're 31. You're smart when you want to be. You're beautiful. You have time to rebuild. I don't know how. Start by forgiving yourself. Then figure out who you want to be. Not who you think you should be, or who's better than me. Just who you want to be." We sat in silence for a moment. "Alexander's starting a new foundation," Claire said. "It provides microloans to women entrepreneurs in developing countries. We're looking for a coordinator for the New York office. It's entry-level, but it's meaningful work. I could get you an interview if you're interested." I stared at her. "You'd do that? After everything?" "You're my sister," Claire said simply. "And everyone deserves a second chance." That was 6 months ago. I'm writing this from my studio apartment in Astoria. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I pay my own rent with money from my job at the Rothschild Foundation. Claire got me the interview. I got the job on my own merits. The work is hard. I coordinate with field offices in Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda. I process loan applications. I track success metrics. I work with women who've survived things I can't imagine, who are building businesses from nothing. It's humbling. And it's the first time in my life I felt like I'm doing something that matters. Ryan and I are officially divorced. Last I heard, he moved to Chicago for a new job. We don't keep in touch. There's nothing left to say. I have coffee with Claire once a month. Sometimes Alexander joins us. He's kind to me, never condescending, never throws my past in my face. Last month, Claire invited me to Thanksgiving at their house in the Hamptons. My parents were there. It was awkward at first. 3 years of barely speaking doesn't disappear overnight. But my mom hugged me. My dad asked about my job. We're rebuilding, slowly. I'm dating someone now, a teacher I met at a foundation event. His name is David. He's not wealthy or flashy. He drives a 10-year-old Honda and lives in a rent-controlled apartment in Washington Heights. But he makes me laugh. He challenges me to be better. And when he looks at me, I don't see judgment or resentment. I see possibility. I'll never be Claire. I don't want to be anymore. But I'm learning to be Melissa. The real Melissa. Not the jealous younger sister. Not the woman who destroyed lives for a cheap thrill. Just me. Sometimes I think about that night at the gala. The moment I saw Claire in that emerald dress, radiating happiness, while I stood there in my knockoff gown, married to a man who resented me. I used to think I'd won by stealing Ryan. But I didn't understand the game. Claire didn't lose her fiancé. She lost dead weight. And while I was busy gloating over my prize, she was building an actual life. The thing about stealing someone else's leftovers is that you don't realize they're leftovers until you're choking on them. Ryan wasn't the love of her life. He was just practice. Lesson learnt. If you enjoyed this story to this point, please like and subscribe.